Good afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to attend our Toolbox Tuesday technical session today. My name is Tom Vo. I'm a program manager in the Planning Strategy Department at SCAG. We have several subject matter experts from SCAG today and also Esri, so I'm just going to call them out so they can introduce themselves. First, I would just go with the SCAG on the SCAG side. Again, I already introduced myself, and Sarah Dominguez, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Tom. My name is Sarah Dominguez. I'm the program manager for Connect SoCal Development.
Thank you, Sarah. Kevin Kane.
Hey everyone, Kevin Kane, Program Manager for Demographics and Growth Vision. I'll be going over some of the local data exchange process, basically the process whereby we develop a forecasted regional development pattern for Southern California in this next plan.
Thank you, Kevin. And on the Esri side, I have Whit.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, my name is Whit Mateau. I'm the tech lead for the regional data platform work from the Esri side and supporting SCAG. I'm joined by Caitlin Smith, project manager, and Maddie, the deputy tech lead as well. So I'll be leading the RDP demo in a little bit.
Thank you, Whit. So as you can see, our presentation today is about the local data exchange process and how the local information services team, also known as LIST, and regional data platform can assist with the process. Due to the LDX process, we can collect and update many regionally significant data sets that are important for our long-range planning work, such as the Connect SoCal, which benefits all local jurisdictions in the SCAG region. Most importantly, it will improve the quality of life for our residents. And before we go into the presentation, there are several housekeeping items that I want to highlight here. So the meeting will be roughly 90 minutes. This meeting has been recorded, so we're going to be hosting it after this meeting. All participant lines will be muted. At the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session. But if you do have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. So or raise a hand function so we can effectively address your questions. We will log all questions and then voice a selection at the end of the presentation. And then a recording of this webinar and the PowerPoint slides will be available on the SCAG website. We will send a link to everyone who has registered after the event. So this is just an overview of the presentation today. Like we mentioned earlier, we're gonna go over the local information service team, talk about the Connect SoCal, the local data exchange process, and finally provide you an introduction of our regional data platform and a quick demo of the RDP and the LDX system. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce to you our local information services team. Its purpose is to coordinate, plan, and develop a system to link SCAG's value-added products, such as data and application, to help address local information needs, deliver technical assistance, and provide local staff an opportunity to offer feedback on how SCAG can improve our products to facilitate better collaboration regionally and locally. And currently, LIST is focusing on the local data exchange process and to solicit inputs from local jurisdictions. So Kevin is going to go into a little bit more detail about the process in a second. And then if you, for any questions related to this webinar or anything related to, technical assistance, you can always reach out to list@scag.ca.gov or submit a request on our RDP regional hub at this link here on the screen. And Whit will give you a tour of that, of our RDP in the second half of this presentation. So with that, I would like to pass it on to Sarah Dominguez to walk us through the Connect SoCal.
Thanks, Tom. So before we dive into, tools and our processes, I want to provide some context to, why we go through the local data exchange. And Connect SoCal is SCAG's name for our statutorily required regional transportation plan / sustainable community strategy. You may also hear this referred to as an RTP-SCS. And so every metropolitan planning organization like SCAG in the United States is required to prepare an RTP. And in the state of California, we're also required to prepare an SCS, Sustainable Community Strategy, as part of this, which directs the region to better integrate regional development, our planned land use, alongside of our planned transportation investments in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I'll just add that these greenhouse gas emission reductions, our target that we have as a region is to reduce GHGs from passenger vehicle emissions by 19% by 2035 as compared to 2005 levels. And achieving this is not important just for climate change mitigation and meeting state climate goals, but I do want to point out that state funding programs are also tied to this target achievement. So because SCAG met our target with our 2020 plan that we just most recently adopted, the region has secured nearly $1 billion in funding through 2 different state programs. And better land use planning and where we're going to grow is really critical for us to be able to reach this target. So in developing the RTPS, we follow many of different state and federal requirements. We need to make sure that anticipated revenues can cover the cost of our planned projects. We forecast at least 20 years into the future, and we do this every 4 years. So we're kind of on a continual update cycle. And then Tom, if you could go to the next slide. Beyond these requirements, it's up to us as a region to chart this path of how we're going to reach our goals. And what you see here is an overview of the pillars of our currently adopted 2020 plan. And at the root of the plan is the core vision, which is driven by 2 core local planning elements. And that's the transportation project list, what's planned to be invested in over the next 20 plus years. We collect that from the county transportation commissions. And then we collect local land use planning and data through this local data exchange. And that helps us fill out, what's planned as the core vision. And then on top of that, we develop key connections, which are kind of strategies on top of the core vision to help augment or use data or technology to help the region go further to meet the goals. So in developing Connect SoCal 2024, we'll be revisiting the core vision and these key connections in light of updated data, emerging issues that are facing the region, as well as new policy priorities such as resilience and equity. So with that, I'll turn it to Kevin to talk a little bit more about where the local data exchange fits in with the process of the development update.
Hey, thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. So we're kind of in phase 2 here on this diagram right now. We spent a lot of 2021 kind of laying some of the foundations and frameworks for this next plan after a deep collective exhale. After the adoption of the 2020 version of Connect SoCal, we relaunched some working groups, worked on a county and regional forecast, and just as of last month, launched the regional data platform, which we'll hear about in just a second. What we're pivoting for in 2022 is policy development, but also data collection. And that data collection side, as Sarah mentioned, the local data exchange or LDX is really the key part. I'll go into a little bit of the details this over the next few slides. And Tom, if you could hit to the next one, please. What is LDX or the local data exchange? Well, you may have been familiar with this. It was called the bottom-up local input and envisioning process in the last cycle. And I'm a little bit curious out of the audience here. I see a lot of familiar names, but some new ones as well. If you mind tossing a hand up or a thumbs up in there, if you have previously taken part in the local input or bottom-up local input and envisioning process with us last cycle. I see Angel from El Centro. I'm sure a handful more. Well, in any case, I'm sure there's it's not just one. I'm sure of it. I do recognize some names here. But in any case, the bottom line is these are the data layers, and these are the ingredients to the forecasted regional development pattern as we see it. And because SCAG is not an implementing authority when it comes to land use, that's why we need the latest and greatest from local plans to align this vision. The data layers that we're discussing in this cycle really fall into 3 categories. We're soliciting updated and corrections on some really core pieces, underlying parcel level land use data, and the preliminary forecast, which is sometimes called SED for socioeconomic data for the plan's base year of 2019, its horizon year of 2050, and also the approximate midpoint of 2035, where a lot of the greenhouse gas targets come in. We're also putting some of our plan strategy type of information from the last plan in as an optional editing opportunity. Things like, for example, if local jurisdictions have an updated data set on bike lanes, that helps us kind of improve our active transportation strategies based on what's there on the ground. We're also providing a lot of kind of data for reference related to regional growth objectives in general. But more than just the data side, this is really the only time during the 4-year plan development cycle where SCAG visits each local jurisdiction. It's a chance to share regional priorities, our latest tools, and really to discuss local concerns, challenges, visions for the future with the objective of aligning local and regional visions for growth in Southern California. In the next slide, we've got, we did do this in person, a large traveling road show in the last couple of cycles. Will be mostly virtual this time around, but that's to say that we do see this process as a mechanism to look at maps together and kind of do some sleeves rolled up type of planning work with local jurisdictions. And happy to have this opportunity to go do that. Also, SCAG's General Assembly in May 5th and 6th is another opportunity to kind of spend some time in person together reviewing some of this information because the timing coincides quite nicely. Could hit the next slide, please. I would just point out a few dates here. For about 3 weeks now, we have had the majority of these data layers available for the public and local jurisdictions through data mapbooks and the regional data platform. That's as of February 23rd. Right now, we're doing a bit of a tour of the various sub-regional councils of government, doing some trainings. On May 4th is our anticipated date for finalizing the last data elements, which would be the preliminary growth numbers for local jurisdictions to start their review. And then after that, it's off to the races with trying to meet everybody and go through the data sets and provide that type of information. Our deadline for input is going to be December 2nd, 2022 this year. That's in order to get to all of the other analysis, policy integration, and modeling efforts that we would have to do before releasing a draft plan in fall of 2023 and a final adoption in spring of 2024. And this slide really just kind of illustrates where we, both the at once top-down and bottom-up approach that we take to projecting regional growth for the purposes of coming up with a vision and a pattern for the plan. We're one region of 19 million people broken up into counties varying from, I'd say, mid-sized county to by far the largest county in the country. Jurisdictions also range dramatically in terms of their size, their configuration, not only in terms of the spatial distribution, but also in terms of their operations and their staff. And then at the bottom, the smallest unit of analysis that we really use for kind of forecasting, especially with interacting with local jurisdictions on the forecast, is the TAZ, Transportation Analysis Zone Level. Those are a little bit more standardized. Get to the next slide, please. So I mentioned this term a couple of times already, the forecasted regional development pattern. And this comes from statutory language from SB 375, which originally kind of made this initial linkage between land use and transportation planning. It's to set forth a forecasted development pattern for the region that once you combine it with transportation strategies, policies, will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also hit the federal air quality conformity targets. We have a fairly good sense from our demographic panel of experts what the region, who we're planning for, the likely growth trajectory of the region. About 9% in terms of population, 23% in households, and about 13% in jobs between 2019 and 2050. And this next step to this forecasted regional development pattern kind of answers the question of where will we grow? What's the actual spatial distribution going to look like? And to kind of guide the process, we go by these 3 check marks here. One, we're rooted in local plans, certainly why we're asking local jurisdictions to review the data, steered by a regional vision. A lot of the data layers reflect the emphases of the last plan. These things are a little bit more evolutionary sometimes than revolutionary, but also being aligned with state and federal policy, referring to the targets that we ought to hit, and other state policies like the regional housing needs assessment that certainly do have a linkage here as well. On the next page, I've got an image here of the data map books. which are really what's operative here. And sometimes the material that you use for a process lends itself really nicely for a presentation, but sometimes it lends itself really nicely for a book that you can review. I've tossed the link into the chat here. And my colleague Jung Sao has and his team have developed these really comprehensive data map books for all 197 jurisdictions. They contain all of the background information on the local data exchange process, the 30 or so data layers involved in it, in addition to a map for that jurisdiction. So you can really see how a regional priority manifests itself at the local level. So a preliminary version of those is posted. We'll be updating them in May to include a little bit more information on growth and reframing some of the information on some of the environmental layers called green region layers. And certainly following the process, they'll be updated again once we receive everything back from local jurisdictions. I've got a couple more slides here, and the next one is the list of the actual data layers that I've already mentioned so many times in passing. They really fall into 6 categories: land use, priority development, transportation, green region, resource areas, geographical boundaries, and then finally the growth forecast information. And we do have those available in the data map books and also in digital format in a more interactive manner through the regional data platform. So again, this is really as far as data layers go. These are the things that we are setting forth to engage with local jurisdictions with on plan development. And my last slide from my section is the next one, and that just goes through an illustration of what these data map books look like. I think this one's for the city of Alhambra. So I encourage you to check those out. That provides a lot of detail about the process. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Tom and the Esri folks to talk about the next iteration beyond the PDF version, the much more interactive new regional data platform.
Thank you, Kevin. Looks like we are doing really well on time here, so maybe we can provide you a more thorough demo of the RDP. So that's going to be very exciting. But before that, let me just give you a walkthrough, an introduction of the regional data platform. So the regional data platform, also known as the RDP, and is a revolutionary system for collaborative data sharing and planning designed to facilitate better and more efficient planning at all levels, from cities and counties of all sizes up to the region as the whole. The RDP provides tools to standardize regionally significant data sets, opportunities for local jurisdictions to update their data in real time and draw insights from local trends. The information will support regional and local planning for the implementation of the Connect SoCal, also known as the RTP SCS, by enhancing SCAG's existing data system capability for data-driven decision-making, promoting governmental transparency, encouraging a collaborative regional and community planning, expanding SCAG's data infrastructure system, improving regional data standardization, performing best practices for improvements on data updates, data sharing, and data visualization. Overall, the platform is envisioned as a platform for a smarter region with several major goals in addition to data standardization and community engagement. The 3 goals I have here for you are to provide access to data, modern tools, and best practices. The second goal is to streamline the exchange of data, and which Kevin mentioned earlier, that we are facilitating this two-way data exchange to harvest data from local jurisdictions to support our long-range plan. But also, when we get that information, we will be up data into our system and push that back to local jurisdiction to create value-added products. And the third goal that we are trying to accomplish in this RDP is to establish a community of planners, GIS professionals, and practitioners to foster collaboration and collective learning, as well as guide the long-term growth and evolution of the RDP. So not just providing the tools and resources, but we are also trying to establish a community that folks can go on the regional hub, share ideas, and talk to each other and learn from each other. And this is an overview of the timeline. Just kind of quickly show you how we have started and how we completed. So we started the project 2 years ago in April 2020 during the pandemic, and we have collaborated closely with 9 pilot jurisdictions, as you can see here. And these jurisdictions are well represented within the SCAG region. And thank you so much if you are attending this session for your collaboration. Without your engagement, we wouldn't be able to provide and launch the RDP on time. So within that process, because of that, we have created several tools and resources for local jurisdiction, and I'm going to go into it a little bit in the later slides. But as Kevin mentioned earlier, we have launched our RDP system on February 23rd, a little bit more than two weeks ago. So the RDP delivers powerful data and tools to support and enhance planning and data sharing across all jurisdictions in the SCAG region. Under this platform, we aim to provide easily accessible data and information like the regional hub, innovative planning and engagement tools like Helper. Helper is housing element parcel tool that we have designed to assist local jurisdictions to update their housing elements. And then we also trying to facilitate a two-way data exchange with local jurisdictions like the LDX system, local data exchange system. So those are 3 major components that we are trying to achieve within this RDP. So the first component is the data and information tools. And as you can see on the top right corner, we have those icons that shows you clearly what tools and resources will be available to local jurisdictions and public. So the regional hub is going to be a combination of will be accessible to both public and the local jurisdictions. The regional hub, Whit will go into it a little bit more, but it's basically an entry point of our RDP system. SoCal Atlas is another application that we created within this to basically it's a map-based application to show you different key indicators, different key performance indicators within the region. Not at the spatial data, but we have also created a infographics for each local jurisdiction in the region. So this is a very cool tool and it's public. So if you are interested in learning more about the data, please visit our regional hub and look at the SoCal Atlas. The second component here is about planning and engagement tools. We have several tools here for local jurisdictions and the public. Helper, Parcel Locator, local general plan update site. This is a template that we have designed specifically for local jurisdiction to use. It's sort of like a website template for them to use to update their general plan. So you can open this template up and you can modify the information and you can modify the structure, expand from there, and you can quickly use that for your general plan update process. The other one is the off-the-shelf planning and engagement tool. So part of the RDP, part of the benefits from this RDP project is the a set of complementary ArcGIS licenses where we are providing it to all local jurisdictions. And these licenses include ArcGIS Online with 500 credits, so you can use that for your local planning activities. We have ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Urban, and Community Analyst. The third component of the RDP is the local data exchange system, where we have the LDX website on the regional hub. We also have, there are 2 versions of it. One is the public version and the other one is the private version. The private version is only accessible to our local jurisdictions because it contains sensitive information, confidential information such as growth and proprietary data set. And then we also have within this private LDX site, we have included several resources and tools such as the LDX application editor, editor application, and also secure uploading system and things like that. So this is just a summary, a table summary of all the tools that we have currently have within the RDP. And this is just the beginning, as we call this is the RDP 1.0. But as you can see that, as we keep going forward within our process, and we will be expanding this RDP with more tools and resources so that you can use the information for your local housing, local planning activities. So that's pretty much it for the a quick walkthrough of the RDP platform there. And so now I'm just going to pass it back to Whit to give us a thorough walkthrough of our RDP system.
Great, thanks, Tom. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks, Tom. Wanted to take a tour through just about everything Tom mentioned on his last few slides. In fact, I think we'll pretty much go through them in the order that he walked through. But first, maybe if you're brand new to the RDP, thought we might start with how you'd find it. So this is SCAG's main website, www.scag.ca.gov. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link directly to the RDP portion of this website. It's linked in other places as well, but that's probably the quickest and easiest way to get started with the RDP. This is a page within SCAG's website where you can learn more about the regional data platform and sort of the program around it. There's resources like fact sheet. You can join mailing lists to stay informed and things like that. But to really jump into the RDP, we'll click Access the Regional Data Platform. This takes you to what we call the Regional Hub, which is the main entry point into the Regional Data Platform, as Tom noted. The Regional Hub here is open to the public, so I didn't have to log in to get into this. It may support logins in the future, but initially everything on this site is public. And in fact, we may think about this demo as sort of in two parts. First, we'll go through the data and information as well as tools for planners, which is generally accessible to the public through the Regional Hub. And then we'll focus and look for the second half at the LDX system and the tools in the RDP to support it, which does require a login. So maybe to get started, here we are on the homepage. I'll just scroll down and we'll go through the capabilities of the RDP by way of the Regional Hub. The first thing worth noting is what we call the content library, which is really a pretty wide collection of data as well as other information that's curated in one spot to really support you with your local planning and analysis needs. There are 159 pieces of content in here. This includes all of the content that's currently in SCAG's open data site, as well as a good deal more data and other information. And so I think the plan is over time to replace the existing open data site with the Regional Hub. But everything you can find there, you can also find here. In terms of the content within here, a good amount of this is what we call feature layers, so about 115 of those. You can think of these as service-enabled data sets, which allow you to not only download them, but to filter them, to interact with them, and even to use them directly in your systems and applications. But there's also maps. You can see a collection of 17 maps here as well. There's documents. So in this case, we've taken a lot of the key documentation that SCAG has produced and has made available through various portions of the SCAG website and brought those in here so that if you're searching for something like sustainability, you might find not only data, but policies and plans and documentation related to that in one spot. There's also applications as well as Excel documents and a few other types. One thing that's maybe worth noting here too is that this isn't just data that SCAG has produced, or even that has sort of procured and updated or enriched and shared. In a lot of cases, this is data coming from other sources. And so you can see here the list of different sources from which a lot of this data is pulled together. If I just click on Caltrans, for example, we can see there's 11 data sets that come specifically from Caltrans. And the idea here was to bring all useful data together in one place. So there's a bit of a clearinghouse or one-stop shop for you to find data that may be of value in your local planning process, as opposed to you having to go to Caltrans website or Census's website and such. To maybe just drill in a little bit deeper. So when you've found one of these data sets, what you can do with it, if I click on state highway bridges, again, this is a Caltrans data set. You start by broadening in to look at a map representation. Here we go. There's about 13,000 of these state highway bridges. It's an interactive map, so you can zoom in and you can interact with these points. You can also, from this point, filter the data. So if you want to just look at specific, counties, for example, or look at them by name, you can also adjust the styling. So there's a certain amount of interactivity you can do just within kind of the content library experience. You can also choose to download the data. It gives you options to download the full data set or the filtered data set, as well as download them in different formats. You can favorite it. If you want to come back and look at it later, you can also view it in tabular form. But then if you want to do more with this data, you have this option to take what we're looking at here as data and bring it into, sort of create your own map out of that, or to create your own story map, which is a type of application that lets you take this data, not just put it in a map, but create an experience around it where you can tell a story around this data. If you're more of a developer, you can get direct access to various API endpoints. So you can actually bring this directly into your application or your own GIS system, as well as explore the API using the API Explorer. This getting a little bit more into the developers in the audience, maybe tools that would be useful for you. You also can look more at the data source, the metadata, et cetera. So all that stuff is there if you're interested to dig in. And this exists for all of the data sets that are within the repository. Now, maybe just to highlight one thing quickly that I forgot to note, when looking at data that's coming from sources outside of SCAG, it's important to note that we've done our best to sort of highlight that by way of who owns the data, as well as the tags. And you can see in here, these are external data sets and unmodified by SCAG. So just something to key into as you're exploring the data. The team has done a fair amount to try to clarify the source of various data sets, but it's just something to look out to since there are data from multiple sources all within here. Maybe Tom and team will just note too, I'm really terrible at multitasking. I've come to realize, so I'm not going to be able to monitor the chat, the hands, things like that. So maybe just jump in, let me know if there's a question or such. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So just coming back, moving on from the content library. Local data exchange is a topic we'll come back to. In fact, we'll have a whole section of this demo just on local data exchange. But staying in the spirit of accessible data and information, Tom mentioned SoCal Atlas, which is an application intending, whose intent is to allow you to explore the region as well as your jurisdictions through both maps and statistics. So let's bring up that application. All right. So you'll notice a familiar experience here, just by way of note. We start at the region level, but there is a control up in the top left to drill into your jurisdiction. But we'll start here looking at a regional level. So what I'm looking at is a collection of maps related to key indicators for the SCAG region. This one is around census population. It's multi-scale, so as I zoom in, I can start to see finer grain detail as to how the population is distributed at a census tract level here across the region. This is one of several key indicator maps that are available, so I can also explore, for example, household income, educational attainment, as well as poverty ratio. So you can think of these almost like map books, but that they're interactive. And so you can look at them visually. You have the legend over here. You can click on the map and get more information about, in this case, this specific track, along with census, ACS-based census statistics around poverty for this particular track in Baldwin Park. The data in these various maps come from different places, some from outside of SCAG, including some from Esri. So in the top right, to learn a little bit more about the source of that map, you can read a little short paragraph, as well as click here to learn more about the map. And actually, these maps are all in the regional hub. So this, in a sense, takes me back to the regional hub where that map for where there are people living in poverty is shared. So I can actually get to this map either through search, if I go to the regional hub and search for poverty, or in this more curated experience through the atlas. So they're sort of connected in that way. So here I'm looking at things through the sort of spatial lens. So I'm looking at various key indicators from a map, but we also have the ability to look at this through statistics. So I can click over here and I can look at some key indicators for the SCAG region at sort of a statistical view. This is an interactive, what we call infographic. So as you mouse over these, some of them will let you click and you can drill in a little bit more. Click over here, for example. Here we have a bar and line chart. So again, this idea of like summary level information and drill in. You can think of this app as being very much about progressive disclosure. You can kind of drill into various areas as you find pieces that are of interest. This infographic is also exportable and printable. So if you want to export it or print it, you can do that. These infographics themselves are also made available as templates for those of you that are working at a jurisdiction and have requested one of the business analyst licenses that Tom mentioned. You can essentially take these infographics and customize them to your needs, and then you can create infographics like these for your jurisdictions or even custom geographies. So we've kind of been looking so far at key indicators. That's just one of 4 topics at initial launch that have data available. So I can also switch over to housing and look at housing statistics. I can also look at employment statistics. Again, most of these are interactive, and so you can kind of drill in. But I'm still looking at all of this through the lens of the SCAG region. I may be interested in looking at things just for my jurisdiction. And so that's where this select your jurisdiction experience comes in. So I can select, for example, Anaheim, and now I'm looking at the employment statistics just for the city of Anaheim in Orange County. And so you can jump around topics through both maps and statistics, as well as both through the lens of geography, as well as through statistics. So here I'm switching back and I can look at employment maps for the city of Anaheim. So again, just different ways to kind of get into and explore. One thing I'll just note quickly before moving on, if you did want to, for example, grab a quick map of, for example, this north central portion of Anaheim, you can click map capture. So this is a little tool that you'll see in just about every application that are presented through the regional data platform that lets you easily just take a screen grab of that in a clean way without any of the zoom in buttons and all that kind of stuff that you can then copy and paste, for example, into a presentation. So yeah, you can almost think of SoCal Atlas as a little bit of an interactive version of the local profile documents that SCAG has produced in the past. It doesn't attempt to replace that. It doesn't have all of that data, and it's a bit of a different experience, but we're excited to sort of present a lot of this information in a maybe more interactive way. So we hope you enjoy this application. So back to the hub, maybe moving on from the idea of accessible data and information to tools for planners. SCAG has a data set. It's a really rich and valuable data set, which is sometimes referred to as the combined land use for the region, which includes, it's essentially data at the parcel level. There's about 5.1 million records, so all the parcels in the region that's enriched and attributed with a lot of really valuable information related to land use, related to housing. It's a data set that is available through the regional hub. So if you want to look at it kind of more through a data lens, you can explore that data set. But it's also the data set on which a few applications are built. So if you want kind of a more focused experience around some of that data, we have these applications which make working with the data very easy. The first is Helper. Tom referenced Helper, or Helper 2.0. Helper is actually the part of the RDP that's been around for a long time. It was initially released in late 2020 and updated again in the spring of 2021. This is a tool that's really intended to help local jurisdictions and other stakeholders understand local land use and align that with housing, planning for housing. So typically what we would do here is we would select a jurisdiction, and then we're immediately presented with a land use map for this jurisdiction. It is interactive, so we can zoom in and we can select features and such. But the intent is really to use some of these filters, which were developed in alignment with HCD, to further drill into this data. Not going to go into a lot of detail because Kevin and Tom and team have done very thorough run-throughs in previous Toolbox Tuesdays of Helper. But this just is sort of another example of a tool and application that's being made available through the regional data platform. For those of you that have been using Helper or familiar with the application, as part of the launch of the RDP, not too much has changed, except that the URL has changed. It's now rdp.scag.ca.gov instead of maps.scag.ca.gov. But if you go to the old link, it'll redirect you, so not a problem. But perhaps more interestingly, there's been a few other minor improvements to connect it with other parts of the RDP. The first is an integrated request for technical assistance experience. So if we click this little bell here, we're presented with a request for technical assistance form where you can select the type of request that you're submitting, some details, some contact information and such. And depending on what sort of request type you select, it may give you different options in the form. And this is, in a sense, a direct connection to the list team that Tom mentioned at the start of the briefing, and allows you to immediately reach out for help. And this is included in all of the applications, as well as through the regional hub and LDX website. So the goal is really to make it as easy as possible to connect with the experts at SCAG who can help out. The other thing I'll just point out here quickly is all of the RDP applications include this app switcher. So when you click the app switcher, it brings up a list of other applications you can easily switch to. That's new to Helper. So I'm going to just quickly also walk through Parcel Locator. Parcel Locator is looks and feels very similar to the other applications. And that's part of the goal, is to have streamlined experiences, and so you kind of get familiar with how these applications work. For example, by starting by selecting a jurisdiction again. So I'll select Santa Monica. In this particular case, this is a very simple application. It's really intended to help you locate and learn about parcels. not generally specific to land use, but you can come in, you can start typing. For example, maybe I'm searching for an APN with 123 in it, or an address with 123 in it. As I typing, it suggests results. And these results are actually constrained to the jurisdiction of Santa Monica. So here, when I click this result, it's going to immediately select this parcel within Santa Monica and present me with all this information about this particular parcel. I can click around and look at other parcels that way as well, or I could enter an address or even zoom to my current location. So it's really a simple application. It's intended to expose that really rich parcel-based land use data set that I mentioned earlier in a way that like pretty easy to use if you're just looking for some information about a parcel. This type of application was something we heard a fair amount about in our initial outreach with the pilot jurisdictions, so we hope this will be valuable. The other thing that's neat about these applications, potentially Parcel Locator, but this can also work with SoCal Atlas and even Helper, is let's say you want to actually link to this from your website or even embed it in your website. If I take this URL and I just add a URL parameter called jurisdiction equals Covina, for example, it will actually start already zoomed into the city of Covina. And as users start entering information, it will include only addresses and parcel APNs for the city of Covina. So this is a nice handy utility if you wanted to make use of some of these applications in your other workflows, link to them from your websites. You can just pass in the jurisdiction parameter, and that hopefully will be of use. Incidentally, that process, if that felt a little bit technical, I apologize, but that is documented as well through a lot of the help material, on the regional hub. So that's a little tour of some of the applications. If we come back to the regional hub, we wanted to touch on next is Planner's Corner. Planner's Corner is really a space in which we try to share as many of the tools and resources directly usable by planners in one place. So I'm going to just click over here. The first thing we present in Planner's Corner is that general plan update site template that Tom referenced, which you can think of as a template that allows you to create a general plan update plan on the web. So part of the idea is kind of moving from more of a PDF-based delivery of a general plan to a web-based one, and a site template that makes it really easy for you to create one of these and sort of bring your information and data directly into the website. So maybe we'll take a quick look and add it through a preview. So this is a preview of the general plan update site. This is kind of the generic template. So it's not specific to a city. You can kind of see up here, place your logo here, for example. Just to walk through some of the components of the site, there's template pages for each of the general plan elements. For example, the housing element page. And each of these has a timeline, some context indicators, which can also be data driven, a little bit of information about the process. And in some cases, we have survey templates as well that allow you to share a survey with your constituents and collect data, for example, about housing at some point during the general plan update process. I think there's about 3 of those survey templates, one for housing, and at least one related to the, I think one for soliciting feedback on a final plan, as well as one for the envisioning process. So you can, right, here's the second survey template, which allows you to get community sentiment early in the general plan update process. have a page which allows you to share more about your process with constituents and residents, a page that talks about goals, as well as a page template for sharing an approved or adopted plan, which again can include data-driven statistics, the ability to embed interactive maps or even comparison to swipe back and forth between the old and the new, as well as a third survey template for collecting feedback on the approved or adopted plan. Again, this is a template. It's really intended to help you get started very quickly in creating a general plan update site tied to your local jurisdiction's general plan update process. As part of this, there's documentation and resources to help you get started with doing this. This is a document that takes about 40 minutes to walk through that shows you how to start with that template and create your own general plan template. And we'll also be having a webinar coming up soon that goes into this in detail. And so it'll be kind of a follow along. You can walk through it as the SCAG and Esri team show you how to do it. And then there's some additional resources related to doing a little bit more with the technology behind this. In addition to the general plan update site, as Tom noted, there is a collection of off-the-shelf tools and resources for planners. There's licenses that have been made available. And in fact, a majority of local jurisdictions have already received and gotten started with these licenses. But if you don't believe your jurisdiction has received one, there's a link here to the survey to request a license for your jurisdiction. We have ArcGIS Business Analyst with resources supporting it. ArcGIS Urban, which is a really comprehensive tool for both land use as well as zoning level planning at a local level. Behind those, we have ArcGIS Online, which allows you to do web-based mapping and analysis, as well as create your own applications. And then ArcGIS Pro, which is really more the tool for GIS professionals to work with data, do heavy analysis, publishing, and such, all within a desktop experience. I mentioned a moment ago, there's going to be a webinar for learning how to use the general plan update template. There is also we think of this actually as a webinar series, which you can learn more about here soon. In fact, I think perhaps as a follow-on to the Toolbox Tuesday, we'll be sending out more information with links to register for the webinar series. And there may be more information on that in a newsletter as well. So look forward to that. I think there's maybe a 4 to 5 part, I can't remember exactly, webinar series, which will cover a number of these parts. The last thing I just want to highlight on Planner's Corner is the member and partner showcase. I think this is a cool new idea. The idea here is to start perhaps fostering a bit of collaboration between members and partners in the region, so we can sort of, in a sense, all learn from the great work each other are doing. We started here with just 2, a community plan from Boyle Heights, as well as an ArcGIS urban model from the city of Signal Hill. We encourage you to click the share your work button if you have something that you're proud of and that you think others in the community and the region could learn from. The idea is to share that and build a bit of a gallery of some of the great work that's happening in the region. Now, in the spirit of collaboration, we also wanted to just highlight this idea of regional collaboration. This is not part of the RDP yet, but is intended to come soon, and an area where I think the team collectively anticipates more growth in the future. The idea here is to support logins to the regional hub and provide you with an opportunity to join and participate in regional initiatives for things like housing, climate adaptation, perhaps environmental justice or equity, and collaborate through sharing data with each other, rapid data collection through things like map-based surveys, as well as engage through teaming capabilities like discussions. So really to kind of sort of like a digital working group concept. We're excited to perhaps see this grow into the future. So it's something to keep in mind, and the idea of regional collaboration through member and partner showcase and regional initiatives potentially being, a direction the RDP might go if you see that of value. The last part, just wanted to highlight here in the regional hub is a request for technical assistance. Already noted this, this is a form. I just want to highlight it again because I think it's really important. The idea is to make it really easy for you to engage directly with SCAG experts through the list team if you have help or need help on something. This is the same form we saw a moment ago in the helper application, and it's accessible in all the applications. And there's different types of requests here, from demo support to system issues to an inquiry about data, or even other requests, like if you have a question about policy, for example. So definitely encourage you to make use of this and engage with SCAG and the rich resources and skills that exist within the list. So with that, that sort of wraps up the first portion of the demo. Wanted to pivot and focus more specifically on the local data exchange and the LDX components of the regional data platform. So essentially what we'd like to show you is how staff from jurisdictions across the region can engage directly with SCAG to share data, review and correct data, even edit the data, with the goal being to build in a very collaborative and inclusive fashion, correct, robust regional data. Hopefully making it as easy as possible for you at a local level along the way. So the starting point is the LDX page on the regional hub. This page is public, so it's a good place to learn more about the LDX process as it relates to how the RDP is supporting LDX. Incidentally, you can find a link here to the PDF data and map books that Kevin mentioned earlier that Jung and team have been working hard on. This is also a good place to learn more about the local data exchange process in general on SCAG's website. Kevin and Tom already talked about the timeline. You can learn a little bit more about the timeline here. I did want to highlight sort of what does it mean to engage in the LDX process as part of the RDP. And at a simple level, you can think about there being two types of participants. There are folks that may contribute data, so that are actually like looking at the data or own a piece of data you want to upload. So you're making a contribution of data to SCAG for a jurisdiction and for a particular type of data. There's also reviewers. So reviewers are, you can perhaps more of like a manager type role within the local jurisdiction who have the responsibility to review contributions made by their team at the local jurisdiction before it makes it to SCAG. So it provides an additional level of review. You can make sure that the data going to SCAG is correct, and also helps ensure that when data makes it to SCAG, it's gone through an additional level of vetting. So there's those two roles, and as we get into the demos, just keep that in mind. We'll spend a lot of time talking about contributors, but we'll talk about both roles as we get into the demo. Now, to become an LDX participant, you start by requesting an account. So just to show you what that looks like, it's a fairly simple form here. So you just click on that, you provide your email, you request to use government email address, first name, last name, the jurisdiction, the city or county that you're supporting, whether or not you're a contributor, want to play the role of a contributor or a reviewer, then your job title and phone number, and that's it. So you make that request for an account. Initially, that will be primarily SCAG staff reviewing those requests for an account. When you get approved for an account, you'll receive an email that looks a little bit like this. LDX account request approved. It'll have a link to LDX web, your temporary password that you'll be changing as soon as you log in, as well as a link to request technical assistance if you have any help. So in this particular case, I requested the role of local contributor for the city of Aliso Viejo. So once you have an account, you can then log into what we call LDX web, which is in a sense the entry point into LDX for LDX participants. And that is private. So I could have clicked the link in the email, or there's a link down here at the bottom of the page. I click that, I'm going to be asked to sign in. There are a few options for how to sign in, but those of you working on behalf of jurisdictions and partners would click this jurisdiction and partner login. I'll log in with my account. The goal here, by the way, too, is when the regional hub starts to support logins for collaborating on regional initiatives, the idea is really to provide that single sign-on experience. So this does use kind of enterprise identity management behind the scenes to facilitate that single sign-on. Okay, so I've logged in, and now what we're looking at is a different website. So this is a second website, and this is what we call LDX Web. This is your portal into all things LDX, specifically as an LDX participant. You can also think about this as a bit of a workspace. If you're doing a lot of contribution to SCAG, this might be the site that you bookmark, for example. So scrolling down a little bit, here we can learn a little bit more about the data. Kevin, I believe, already touched on a lot of this already. Won't go through it, but you can see the different areas. These first 4 columns, which include 19 data sets, are or I think 18 or 19, depending on how you measure it. I think we have bikeways split into 2. These are the 19 data sets that are available right now through the regional data platform. Green region as well as growth are coming soon. Also to note, you can see there's a subset of these that are directly editable. Those that are not editable, you can still provide feedback on, and we'll show you how that works momentarily. Just before we do that, in terms of the high-level process, this might be implied from what I mentioned earlier, but it's pretty straightforward. A local contributor can make a contribution, and there's a few different ways of doing that, which I'll show in a moment. Once that contribution has been submitted, there's a job that gets created behind the scenes, in a sense that initiates a job or a workflow related to that contribution. So it can be tracked all the way through until it's either approved and integrated into the regional database or ultimately rejected and sent back to the local jurisdiction. But once a contribution's been made, then a local reviewer, the team of reviewers that are assigned to that local jurisdiction, if there's more than one, will get notified via email, and they'll be required to review and either approve or reject that data contribution. If, assuming they approve it, that will then go to SCAG. And again, there's more emails happening behind the scenes, but once it's approved by a local reviewer, SCAG then gets that data and reviews it, incorporates it into the database, and if needed, can reroute that back to the local reviewer for final review. That typically only happens if SCAG made changes as part of integrating that contribution into the regional database. So with that as context, let me show you how this works. So there's a few different options for contributors. The first is an experience we call the LDX editor application. You can think of this as sort of a live version of the data and map books, which allow you to draw on the map and provide textual feedback on data, as well as in some cases directly edit or correct that data. So let's take a look. Again, I think hopefully a relatively familiar experience. We'll start by selecting a jurisdiction. In this case, I'll select Anaheim. From there, we can select a data layer. So these are the 19 that are there initially, and this list is anticipated to grow between now and May. So I'll select transit priority areas to get started. So first, you can learn more about transit priority areas over on the left. You also note that this is for reference only, meaning that it can't be edited, but I can provide feedback. So again, I get like kind of an interactive data map book. I can zoom in, I can click on these features to get more information. It's all kind of interactive. But let's say I'm noticing that there should really be a transit priority area right here below the Anaheim label. So if I click on feedback, I can use different tools to, in a sense, highlight the area for which I'm providing feedback. So maybe I'll do it, right here. I can say, this should also be a TPA, please reference source documentation here, and maybe I include a link, and I can submit that to SCAG. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is it's actually initiating a job so that this feedback all the way through the process, whether it's accepted or rejected, is tracked and reported on and can be audited at a later date. So now that feedback been sent to SCAG, that job will take on a life of its own. But maybe just to continue and show you a few other options, let me switch to a different type of data. So I'm going to switch to general plan land use. So in order to really edit this data and interact with it, I need to zoom in a little bit more. So I'm going to come in here, and now I'm looking at general plan land use again for the city of Anaheim. Maybe I noticed that this specific parcel here, just symbology wise, I can tell that looks off. I can see in here it's general office use is what the general plan land use code is for that. Now I could draw a box around that and say this needs to be updated, but let's say I'm pretty familiar with this data. I know, in fact, that this should be residential, not office use. So I can actually come into the edit tab, which I'll note editing is currently in beta. There's some improvements likely to come, but it is there and ready to use. So I'd encourage you to check it out and provide feedback. And I can start editing. So the first thing is I'm asked whether or not I want to create a new job or open an existing one. Come back to that in just a moment. I have no new job, so I'll create a new job. So now I'm in edit mode. Zoom in a little bit here. I'll note that I can edit through the map. I can also switch to table view. And so I can choose to limit things to my current map extent. So let me switch back. So for example, if I continue to zoom in, the intent is to let you pretty easily go back and forth between map and table view, as well as interact or edit through either the map or table view. But I'll stick in map view, and select this feature. And here I have a collection of attributes, only a subset of those I'm allowed to edit. I'm going to switch the general office use to multifamily residential. I update that. You can see the symbology of that feature changed. And I can even choose to select on the map those features that I've edited. So if I get into a larger edit session and I can't remember what I've actually changed, this makes it easy to select and highlight only what you've changed. So at this point, let's say I go on to make a few more edits. I can choose to submit these edits to SCAG. Because this is production, I want to keep the data clean. I'm gonna say no, but if I click yes, this would actually initiate that job, go to my local reviewer, who would then review and ultimately make it to SCAG. And when it's a data correction or an edit directly like this, it makes it really easy for that to be incorporated all the way through once it's reviewed and approved. Well, let's say I'm not going to do that yet. I want to come back to this tomorrow. I can choose to stop editing. You'll notice that my feature goes back to what it was. because in a sense, I haven't changed that representation of the data. I've only proposed that change in that edit session. So now if I wanted to pick up, I could say start editing, and I will have that job that I just created a moment ago here that I can pick. I select that, and now it switches back to that state. So it's kind of the idea of creating these edit sessions tied to jobs. Once I've submitted, it's then out of my hands. It then goes to the local reviewer. So in addition to those editing tools, there are a few other things here as well. I mentioned select edit features, table view. If you want to just zoom to a location, you can do that. You have the option of switching to different base maps. So for example, if you want to look at this on aerial imagery, you can do that as well. High resolution printing, so you can print to PDFs in layout format and various page setups, as well as map only view. This may be handy if you want to create, in a sense, your own map book-like representation of this data. You can do that straight from here, as well as legend and map capture. Lastly, of course, request for technical assistance is in here, allowing you to engage directly with the list team. And also pretty cool, now that I'm logged in, when I click the app switcher, it actually should show me the other apps as well. I don't know what happened there, but you can switch back and forth to some of the other applications too. So that's the LDX editor application. And this is allowing you to correct data, make edits directly against the data itself if you feel comfortable doing that, as well as providing feedback on any of the data layers that SCAG is making available. If you do have a representation of that data already, and so you don't want to, it just doesn't make sense to go in and make those edits or provide that feedback directly, you do have the option of sharing a GIS data file. And so you can upload a shape file or a CSV for any one of these editable data types. And again, behind the scenes, that initiates a job. There is also the ability to share an adopted plan. So if you've used ArcGIS Urban to do a land use plan, you can share that data directly with SCAG, and it makes it even easier to bring in because it's in a standard data model and structure. And lastly, you have the ability to upload a housing element sites inventory, which is a spreadsheet that I think many of you are already working on or have already developed as part of your 6th cycle housing element update. So you just click on that and you can upload your CSV, and that helps provide SCAG with some key data to facilitate Connect SoCal. And of course, the ability to request technical assistance here as well. So you'll see that just about everywhere. So that's really, there's quite a number of options there for contributors that are available today at launch. And as Kevin and Tom noted, there will be more data coming out here in the next few months, including Green Region, as well as growth and socioeconomic data. One last thing I just wanted to highlight before we wrap up is to provide a bit of a behind the scenes view of this, as well as give you an idea for how LDX Editor will be engaging in the LDX process. So there's kind of this system on the back end called Workflow Manager that is in a sense what's guiding these different workflows. So you can see workflows for adopted plan, data edits, feedback, and file upload. If I just zoom in here, you can kind of see how this process goes. There's a version that gets created, information gets pulled from the contribution, the reviewer gets notified, the reviewer reviews, they approve or not. And I won't go through this in detail, but all of these workflows have a very structured process, which involves, where appropriate, the transfer of ownership, changes in status, emails going out, and appropriate decision points and all that. So this is really the design of what's happening behind the scenes. There's also, this ability to manage and look at all of the things happening in the region. So this will provide SCAG with, real-time visibility into the status and facilitate coordination, and collaboration across the region. And then lastly, there's the work tab, which is really what facilitates execution of the work. Now, for those of you at local jurisdictions that will be LDX reviewers, you will actually see this tab. So you'll only see this tab, the work tab. And in fact, you'll only see jobs in your queue. So jobs that are in the queue of the local reviewer for the jurisdiction that you're reviewing for. Now, I'm logged in as a SCAG reviewer or administrator, so I see everything. But for you as a local reviewer, you'll only see your work. And just to kind of give you a sense for how that would work for a local reviewer, this first job, which is in my queue, is reviewing local edits. So if I had actually just submitted those edits I made, the local reviewer for the city of, I think it was Anaheim in that example, would receive an email, they'd come in and they'd see this. And to actually do the review, all they have to do is click the play button, which takes them into this step. They'll be presented with a map that includes the specific data that was edited as part of this job. Take just a second. I think in this case, the jurisdiction was Aliso Viejo. So I can come in here and I can select the edited features so I can see exactly what was edited. You can look at some more metadata and information about the data, and then ultimately I can choose to finish. And at this point, I'll be asked whether or not I approve or not of those edits. And if I say yes, that will then go to SCAG. So again, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. For those of you at jurisdictions and at partners that will be participating in this process, I think the key thing to remember is it's there, it's launched, and we'd encourage you to get in and start exploring the data that's there, exploring some of the tools that let you work with the data, and explore working with the list team. Over the next several months, there will be more data made available leading up to the full launch of LDX in May. And yeah, excited to make all these tools available. And again, if you forgot, you can just, in the upper right-hand corner of the main SCAG website is a link to the RDP, and you can jump in from that point. I think that's it, Tom.
All right, thanks, Whit. That was a very comprehensive demo there. So thank you so much.
I hope it's okay. I used the time you gave me. So.
Oh, no. You used it well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And, thanks.
Okay. All right. So now I'm just gonna share my screen again to, oops, that's my notes. So let me just quickly go to the last slide here. So thank you for that information again. And so you must be wondering what's next after all of the information that we've been throwing at you. So just in conclusion, there are many tools and resources we have created through this RDP project and also the LDX system. So there are two categories for local jurisdictions. You can now request ArcGIS licenses at this link if you haven't done so. You can request access to our LDX system to start reviewing and contributing data to us and start connecting with us for this process. And then, of course, we have the local information services team on board to provide, respond to your questions and provide technical assistance. So right now, from March in February until May, we are doing this soft launch where we are onboarding local jurisdictions, like just with just demo, to walk you through the system to show you what kind of tools and resources you can have and how to use the system. And then Kevin mentioned earlier that we have the SCAG General Assembly coming up on May 5th and 6th. So if you are attending that, if you are attending our SCAG General Assembly, please visit our LDX and RDP table. We will be there to provide additional information to you. And then when we have the growth information available, we're going to start going through our formal one-on-one meeting with our SCAG local jurisdictions to discuss more further about the growth information and the process. And the deadline to submit all of the information to us is going to be is by December 2nd this year. So that's for local jurisdictions. So please reach out to us list list@scag.ca.gov, and we can provide additional information to you. For the general public, now you can access all of the publicly available data tools and training on our regional hub, and you can access to those tabular data sets, tabular spatial applications on our regional hub, and you can also view training videos and things like that for your planning related works. And this is just a list of acronyms that we have been thrown at you. So if you are interested in learning more, here's the list. And this is pretty much the final slide of our Toolbox Tuesday today. And again, if you have any questions, please send it to our team here, list at scag.ca.gov. That is our local information services team. And if you have 2 minutes, please take out your phone and scan this survey. It's only 2 minutes to show us, provide your input and comment about this technical assistance, this Toolbox Tuesday workshop. So we can improve based on your comments. And with that, I would just open it up for questions. We have about 8 minutes left. And thank you to those who have been asking questions in the chat. So we have tried to respond to your questions as much as possible. So if you have any additional questions, please go ahead and unmute yourself or type it in the chat, and we can discuss. Any questions from the audience? Okay, well, hearing none, so I hope we provided a lot of information and useful information to you. If you have any comments, feedback, or questions, please reach out to us. And if the QR code doesn't work, you can click on the link that Lena sent in the chat, or if you exit, if you close this Zoom, it will basically take you to a website where you can provide your feedback to us. So yeah, again, thank you so much for attending our Toolbox Tuesday today, and thank you and have a great day.